You are watching the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.tecntv.com. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Permanent Associates. I'm your host, Randy Perham. Of course, always. Nothing's changed. But I hope you all had a great week so far. And of course, it was a busy one for me as always. I'm trying to adjust and do some balancing in my life lately. But I'm getting through it, and I enjoy what I do. But at the same time, it's kind of like as the seasons change, so should your routine, and I'm a firm believer of that. And so I've been working on that. But anyways, enough of that. I hope you all had a great week, like I said. And without further ado, I got my good buddy Tiffany with us this week, or today, and we're gonna get into it to some hot button issues, and I want you all to sit back, relax, and check this out because today we finna get off the charts as always. We always get off the charts when we're together because it's necessary. We bring conversation that needs to be had, and this is and today is gonna be no exception to that philosophy there. So without further ado, ma'am, hello.
Hello, how are you today?
I am living the legend. I'm
Oh,
doing good.
okay.
I'm doing good.
Legend, not even dream, but legend at that point.
Yes, living the legend.
That's something. Legend. I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a military cavalry saying. Out of the first Cav
Oh,
division,
okay.
live the legend. So that's what I'm doing. I'm living the legend today. I'm a little on the sleepy side of the house, but I'm gonna get through it. It's
You're
been
you're on the what side of the house?
sleepy. I'm sleepy,
Oh, okay.
but I'll get
Okay.
through
Well,
it.
well, thank you
uh,
so much. I know there's a time zone difference and you're so accommodating.
I try to be. I try to be. I try to help everybody as I can. How's everything going in L.A.?
Well, our weather is changing, so we are having to deal with weather climate changes that we've never had to experience before. So
Hmm.
there are we have weather alerts about storm watches and storm watches that refer to the latest hurricane I think that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Hurricane Hillary. Okay, so
Hurricane
it's
Hillary,
supposed
yes. Even she can't get enough trashing Trump and deleting servers and killing people. Now she's messing with the weather. Ain't that a
Well, I don't even know how they name. I don't even know how they name them. I don't know how a hurricane is named, but
yeah.
anyway, yes. So she's supposed to be making her mark or something sometime in the near
Mm.
future,
Okay.
in a couple days or so.
Good deal. Good deal. Yeah. I wish y'all best of luck and safety, of course. out there. You know,
Thank
The
you.
Maui situation is something of a conundrum. I've been in conference this last week with some folks directly involved, like in Hawaii, about what's going on there in Maui, and like I said, it's a conundrum. You know, and just recently, it's interesting that a book on Amazon. I should have got the graphics and all that stuff so the viewers could see it, but I'm just gonna talk it and they can go do the research themselves. There's a book on
Hmm.
Amazon that was just released a day after the fires in Maui, Hawaii, and it was, it was titled, something to that nature of, the destruction of Maui and all this stuff. And so everybody's like, okay, either this is coincidence or this is like some kind of prophecy that, came to fruition. And I'm not one. Well, I am one. I was gonna say I'm not one that gets into conspiracy theories, but I am, and I would say maybe it was planned. I don't know, but like I said, I was in conference with some folks, and they have some very interesting takes on what's going
Oh,
on
they
there.
do. They do.
Yeah,
I've heard some myself
yeah,
that,
and
it
I
rumored that it was pre-planned or something like that.
right,
That's what I've heard.
yes, and folks, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you just research this term here, resilient cities, and I'm gonna leave it at that. You just research resilient cities, and think about Event 201. You can research that as well, and it maybe it will come together for you, and if not, you can get with me offline and I'll try to explain some things to you because, like I said, I am not one to get into conspiracy theories, but as I forgot who said it, but along the lines of it's not it's only a conspiracy until it happens or until it's proven true.
Right.
So hey,
Right.
I'm
No,
just throwing it out there.
I've heard some things,
Yeah,
so we'll see.
yeah, no,
There.
absolutely. And like I say, it is it's a tragic situation, no doubt. Not to make light of it, but it's tragic. It's unfortunate, and whatever is behind it, it is nonetheless. I hope justice comes to the victims, to the families, to the loved ones, to the missing. And the news is reporting that it's up to upwards of 120 now, I believe, bodies that have been recovered. But like I said, in conference with some folks that's on ground there, it's actually upwards in the thousands. They're looking at like over 1,000 people have perished so far. It's not 100. That's only what the media is reporting. They're saying no, it's like in the thousands. And so, just one person said their group alone recovered like 300 people. So between fires, the house fires, and the waters there, the beaches, lakes, and whatever, what have you.
Well,
So
Mother Nature is
yeah,
showing up.
it could be that, or it could be something of a nefarious nature through the act of man. And like I said, not want to get into conspiracy theories, but there is talks that that there is a ongoing war between the U.S. government and the state of Hawaii, or I should say, the Kingdom of Hawaii. And so that's a
Mm,
whole nother,
that is a whole
whole
nother
nother. That's a
topic.
whole nother building that you
That
got to go
is,
down the
that
street for,
is, that
and
is
get to.
because I'll tell you why. A couple years ago, there's something that came across legislation that, if the Hawaiians wanted the Filipinos to be connected to them in the same category
Hmm.
as Polynesian.
Yeah.
So that was a big disruption because, it's like the Filipinos probably think that they're part of the Polynesian group, and the Polynesians are like, well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. So there was like a debate
Yeah.
going on and a little controversy over that issue a
I'm
few
sure.
years ago.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure. And like I said, this is not something that just happened overnight. This is something that's been going on for decades. Hawaii, along with Alaska, has been two of the contentious land masses, if you will, that have been, going through some things with the U.S. government for decades now, ever since their inception into the United States proper in the late
Right.
1950s. So like I said, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'm gonna be a conspiracy theorist and say,
Well, I'm
everything
just saying,
that,
over the years there's been talk about Hawaii
yeah,
on various topics. So
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
that being one of them, this being another. And yeah, the I'm not going to get into what you on your conspiracy theory platform. I'll stay here and just
yeah, yeah, no, I feel you, I understand. Like it's just one of those things that make you go, hmm. It's like I said, it's a conundrum
oh,
that
definitely.
needs to be peeled back, and those that have the time on their hands and those that are on ground witnessing and dealing with it, they know best. I'm just an
Mm-hmm.
outsider looking in, along with everyone else. But it's just something that would pique my interest a little bit. And like I said, I've been in talks with some of these folks already, and some of the things that they're saying, I'm just like, wow. And it's not just that they're just saying it; they have proof. They're showing documents, they're showing, videos. It's legit stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but
Well, not only that, you are a veteran. So you know certain intel
right, yeah, yeah,
about the
yeah.
government and whether some of these facts are true
Yeah,
or
I
not.
get inundated. I get inundated with information. I'm just like, okay, information overload. Let me just unplug. Let me unplug from the matrix for a little bit and, and get back at it later. But yes, you're right. And I got friends all around. That and they're into this kind of stuff, and or they're tracking it, or they're getting fed this information. So there's that silo of information that's flowing, and I love it, but there are days and times where I'm just like, okay, I have to unplug from it for a little while because it is a bit much, when you're
Hmm.
digesting thousands, literally, pieces of information, in a course of a few
Right.
hours, and then turn around and you have to do a show, you have to, talk to other people about other things that's totally unrelated and get your mind right
Right.
again and deal with life and yeah, so fun stuff.
Yeah, but politics affect us so on an individual level. They affect us on an individual level.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't understand that.
True.
What we talk about is, you know, things that do affect you on an individual level, on a large level,
Mm-hmm.
nationally, globally, but on an individual level. And, that's a talk I always have with people. I'm like, you have to understand that you can have what you want if you go and research, do your own research, figure
True.
out what works for you, who aligns with what you believe, and you could probably get what you want if you have that knowledge and go to the polls to vote. You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
just that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right about that. It's all about how deep you want to get into what it is that you're interested in, or how deep do you want to get into knowing what you need to know. You know, it's cool to stay on the surface level of things and just get the tidbits and say, okay, got it. But when you start to peel back the onion, the oranges, and the apples, and you get into the roots of stuff, then you're just like, oh snap,
Right.
what is going on here? And
Yep.
then you just get into a rabbit hole. After you pass the surface, you get into a rabbit hole. Next thing you know, you're in a mole hole, and then next thing you know, you're down in the pits of hell. So that's just the way it is. But I want to ask you, you being in California, and you're in
Of
the I guess
course.
you could say the nebulous, in the hub of what I call fuckery. Yeah, that's what I have to call it. I can't call it anything else. But for the audience out there that may get offended by my language, sorry, but it is what it is. But that's what it is. It's fuckery. So doctors in California there filed a lawsuit against the state that over a mandatory training claiming that white individuals are naturally racist. Now, here's the thing here. Yeah, it's one thing that you're a doctor and you have to go through like sensitivity training, HIPAA training, or some kind of training to to say, hey, we want you to get up to speed as to how to deal with patients because times are changing. I get that, but
Right.
to go through to have to sit through a class, and if you're a white individual, and what I mean by white, ethnically, blonde hair, blue eye type of person, not
Caucasian?
yeah, Caucasian. There you go. Your origins are from the Caucasus Mountains. But if you're classified as a white person, and you are forced, not voluntold, not volunteering, but voluntold, that you have to sit through this training, and you're told for say 2 3 hours, however long this training may have been, that you are inherently racist because of your skin color, because of the category you ethnically fall under. You are inherently racist when you personally may have never demonstrated anything racist in your entire life, and being throughout your profession, you never had an ethics complaint, no professional complaints against you about perceived racism or anything else. But here it is, this magical moment in time, you're told that you are inherently racist. And I can see where they take offense to this. And they filed a lawsuit saying, no, this is wrong and y'all need to stop it. And the board, the board of directors or whatever it is for these doctors, they had no comment about it. They said we're not going to say anything until after the litigation is over with. But Tiffany, I wanted to get your thoughts on that because that's coming out of your state.
Well, I love my state. I really do. I mean, it is quirky to some extent. You know, they're very passionate here about the things that they're passionate about. Now, when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
certain things like transgenderism, that whole group and rights for that group, they are very, very forthright with that. They passionate, spearheading all kinds of organizations that have come to to fight for the cause. But I will say this: when you talk about racism, and a lot of people don't, well, I won't say a lot of people don't, but if you look at it like we all are racist in some way because we're passionate about our race. So if you're
Mm,
passionate about, let's say, art, you might consider yourself an artist. If you're passionate about science, you might consider yourself a scientist in that regard. But we all are passionate about where we come from and who we are. So
right.
is there any difference between one culture or another claiming that? And I know over, well, see, here's the
Go
thing. I
ahead.
know
Go ahead. I'm gonna get it. Go ahead.
I know we've talked. I know we talk a lot about it, and we always talk about it here. It's always the race card is number one here. Like we throw up the race card like any nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about that, critical race theory,
Yes.
affirmative action, which is considered to be a race
Race-based,
uh,
yeah, program. Yeah.
topic, or not movement or legislation. So I mean, what do you really say when someone's racist? And now you have to go and sit and look at a class and say to determine whether or not you are, or I mean, I can't even get past having to sit in a class to even listen to a lecture on this whole thing.
I like I said, I can see where they're coming from. I can see where these doctors that are being subjugated to this excruciating nonsense are coming from. They're like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me, just because you think white people are inherently racist, that you're going to force me to acknowledge, force me to sit through this course, this class, this briefing, and go along to get along with the notion that I, who may be happen to be white, is inherently racist, and I need to be cognitive of my racism that a person may perceive that comes into my office that never had this perception of me being racist before. But okay, it's stupid
Right.
on the surface, and then if you when you peel back the stupidity, it's insulting to those that they're perceiving would be perceptive of racism. It's like, okay, why is it that we have to have a class to tell somebody that what this group of people might be doing to be considered racist? Let me determine, by me being a minority, by me being a black man, let me determine what I perceive to be as racist. I don't need you, liberal white person, because that's who it's coming from.
Right. I was about to say
Yeah,
that because there's
it's a liberal white person coming from
liberal
that's
people
coming
here.
from that's going to tell me that what I should think is racist and what is not. Yeah, it's like no, you walk a mile in my shoes, and then or live in my neighborhood, grow up the way I grew up, where I grew up at. It didn't tell me whether or not things that have transpired is racist or not. Don't sit here and say
Right.
from an abstract point of view that this is racist and you should feel offended. No, it doesn't
Well,
work that way.
I think if this is something, a training that they have to tell you about other races because you know, and I've seen that in certain cases
Mm-hmm.
where, for example, where I had a conversation with a man who was Caucasian, he was a principal, and he scolded a young single black woman for scolding her child, her son. And he had no right, in my opinion, to do that
Correct.
because he doesn't know what it's like to be in a
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood that is that has to deal with violence 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He
Yeah.
doesn't know that because he's going to be living in a separate neighborhood, and there's not going to be that. There's not going
Mm-hmm.
to be that violence. It's not going to, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be you're going to hear crickets because there's nothing really going on.
Right.
But to say that to tell a mother, especially a single mother of a black male, that, or a person, because we got the language here, you can't, you really have to have walked in those shoes to even claim any of the statements that he made. You can't do it
Right.
because you didn't come from that. So I get it from that perspective, and there are a lot of people that do that. Um, I would say nationally, I wouldn't like peg it to just California. I would just think this is something that occurs nationally, but since we were in California, and California specifically is saying this, but
Mm-hmm.
you really can't. And if then make that an education for everybody.
Yeah.
Make it an education for everybody. If you're gonna do all that, I
I
don't think
would
you should segment one group.
I can kind of go along with that. If you're gonna do something like that, make it something for everybody to partake in. But I would also say make it voluntary. Don't force it. When you turn off the audience when you're trying to force something. If somebody says, if somebody woke up and they just felt naturally guilty. The white fragility. They feel guilty about being white, and they say, I want to attend this training to confirm my biases about myself being a white person, and that I may be naturally racist. Then okay, fine. If that's your cup of tea, go for it. Knock yourself out. But somebody who says, no, I have, all my friends are black or minorities of some kind of descent, and I don't even live in a white neighborhood, and this, that, and the third. So no, I am not racist. So why would I attend this training? There's that dichotomy there that we fail to acknowledge. So I get that, but
Right, because something, yeah, not everybody in the group feels the same way, and I get what you're saying. Not
yeah,
everybody in the group feels the same way, and let that be an individual choice
right,
rather than a group choice. Like,
yeah,
this is a group choice, but at an individual level, we're not doing what we say we're not utilizing our voices that way or
correct.
being able to make a decision. It's almost like forcing you to do something made in, and then the law is like, okay, well, because of this and this group, this is going to be for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand what you're saying. Do it on an individual basis
Yeah,
because not everybody in the group is going to feel the same way. And I
absolutely.
get not everybody's like that. I mean, my grandmother was white on my mother's side, so I can't be like, oh, I don't like Caucasian people, right? I can't say that. So,
True, and
and I know
that's
something different.
yeah,
I've experienced something
Going along the lines of the doctors and stuff like that, there was another situation situation slash story. I'll put it like that, where doctors have revealed that they are putting in certain incognito practices of drug testing pregnant mothers, particularly those that come from black low income or they prove to be difficult people, and they are subjecting them to drug testing. So it, there's that targeting. Is patient identity targeting, if you will, where they're saying, hey, this person comes into my office and they're acting erratic, they're acting a certain way, or they look a certain way, or they're from a certain demographic, that we're gonna secretly drug test them to confirm our bias about this person. you know, is that something? I got people knocking on my door. But
Is that
what are your
something what?
thoughts?
Well,
What-
okay, let's take this back to the 60s when black males were tested, drug tested, and uh, just when they went to work, it was a common thing for them to produce urine before they even stepped into the offices and to their jobs. And so it's something that we have seen before. However, I don't think it's like gonna go away. The culture of people have been targeted for that for so many years, so many years that it's common. It's like, okay, so okay, now what? you know, uh,
mm-hmm.
if it's not for the top, if it's not the black male, it's the black female. So the group as a whole, all of the individuals and persons in that group have been targeted for many years. This is just not, this is not one sighting of it. This is one of many.
Yeah.
And
It,
and it's ridiculous to do that. It's really ridiculous because but then again, I get it. I see how valuable the community is. The community really drives a lot of our economy, of uh, products, of a lot of different industries. So
mm-hmm.
I could see that. I could see why you want to go and do this because you might be able to get something to put in like a sunscreen that you didn't have before. So if you look at sunscreen, you got melanin. Where'd the melanin come from? Where'd the melanin come from?
True. True. Yeah, comes from the black
I
folk.
mean, I mean,
Come from black
but
folk.
of course, this is done through that what the testing, and they wouldn't have had that if they
Right.
didn't do the
But
testing.
it goes to a larger point though, that these doctors are secretly, they're not like they're being forthcoming that, hey, you're acting a little weird. Did you come in here high? Did you sniff something? Did you smoke something? No, they're just like, oh, okay, great. You're having these problems today. Okay, and they're like, nurse, get her ass. And they're drug testing these people, without their consent at that. So there's, that in itself is a problem, but I would look at more of the stereotypical approach from where they're doing these things out of just looking at a person versus having that ability to properly question, properly assess. They just say, "Oh, this person is," and when I say person, this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is not relegated to the black community, because there are white people, there are Hispanics, there are Asians that have been subjugated to this kind of scrutiny as well. So I'm just looking at it. I am talking about this from a perspective of a pregnant woman. Now, there's going to be that other side of the community that's going to say, well, men can get pregnant too. Shut the hell up. I'm not talking to you because you're an idiot.
That's a
Because
whole that right there. That
no man
topic
has been
there,
documented as
pregnant
being
women, is a
pregnant.
whole nother Pandora's box that I don't think you want to get
Right,
into.
right. And I'm not even going to entertain that conversation because there has not been any documented history in the history of humanity where a man was pregnant outside of a seahorse.
Oh
Okay.
well, there's been a lot. Okay, so there's been a lot on that issue, the reproductive. Have you heard of the campaign? Um, what is it called? Period poverty. And on TikTok, they're talking about the women are like, no, I'm against it. I don't want, period is painful, this, that, and the other. So it's really a different campaign, right?
Right.
So I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I understand all that you're saying, especially when it comes to women. Um, but again, if you need to find if you need something, right, on a larger scale, right, you need to get it done. You're not going to tell people what you're actually testing them for, but you're going to say, I'm going to test you, and then find something that that is in the task
Right.
that you need
Now
for the people
now we're talking
you're going
about
to test for.
nefarious nefarious means of extracting, scientific data, and you're going all the way back to the days of the Tuskegee experiment. And that's true. That would be true in probably some cases. And I don't discount that at all. But I just look at it as, that these doctors and nurses, they're putting in a practice which they're violating their patients' privacy, violating HIPAA laws. They're violating just the trusted consent of their patients when they're putting in a practice of, I'm gonna be judgmental and test you for drugs because you're coming in here acting like Shanae, or you're coming here acting like a Karen. It's just one of those things. It's like, okay,
but
docs,
but
we already lost a great deal of trust in you from the pandemic. So you're just going to
right.
further exacerbate the problem by secretly drug testing pregnant women without their consent. Now you're going to force us to become doctors ourselves and put you out of business. That's
But
what
you
it's
have to
going to
look
boil
at the
down to.
underlying reason. And I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy, but the underlying reason why you're doing that, because in that process, there is something that gives life. And I had this conversation a couple days ago with somebody. Women can reproduce themselves. We can clone ourselves because we can give birth to another one. We can give birth to another female. A man can't do that. Men cannot do that. Only women can.
Yes, only a
So
woman can give birth to anything. A man
right.
cannot give birth to
To
nothing.
male, to female, to any person, any gender. I mean, because I am in California, so I'm just going to say person. Um, so,
I'm in Texas, and a man cannot give
yeah,
birth.
you
Only
guys
thing
have
we
a
giving birth to,
black thing
only
going
thing we
on over
giving
there.
birth to is out of our anus when we sit on the toilet after a nice, good, healthy burrito. That's about the extent of
You,
it.
so maybe those tests are to determine some other things that in the future they
Yeah,
want to do.
true,
You know
true,
what I'm saying?
and
So,
I'm not I hear you, and I do agree with you. Don't get me wrong, but I just see it as, at least get the person's consent, and say, because there are second and third order effects to, just randomly drug testing somebody, and say they do come up hot for something. You as a doctor, you may not be their only doctor. You may not have been the one that prescribed them, say, you know, whatever narcotic that may be out there during their pregnancy for pain or what have you, and they didn't disclose that to you. But then you say, oh, they came up hot for this drug, and now you're creating all these other issues for this person, and that they have to fight. You're not going to fight it on their behalf because you did it, but now there's just second and third order effects behind that doctor may not be aware of. Now I can see if it was something like cocaine, marijuana. Okay, that's something different, but they still would have to, get a very, very granular understanding as to why this person may have been exposed to this drug, through secretly testing them, instead of asking them questions like, hey, now you been smoking weed lately? You looking a little high. We finna drug test you.
that would
Or
be
you
too
coming in
much
here
like
acting a little
that.
stupid today.
That
What's up?
would
That's
that's
my point. That's my whole
too
thing. But we was talking about culture a minute ago. We was talking about what would be considered X ethnicity's culture, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I thought about this because there is this article that says, "What is a black Karen?" And there was this outrage because this black woman accused this Indonesian business of appropriating black culture. Now, I've been doing a lot of researching and a lot of digging into anthropology, as of lately. Just looking at different cultures and different things that's been transpiring throughout history. And there's a great book that I highly recommend everyone to read that I started on. I read a couple years ago. It's called *Sapiens*, and the what is black culture? And that's where when you ask that question to a black person, you get this deer in the headlight look, and they know where you're going with it, because at the end of the day, when you really peel back once again the onion, the apples, and the grapes, and the all that good stuff, and you get into the rabbit hole, to the mole hole, and to the pits of hell of it all, you can't define black culture. You just can't, because why? We as a black community, if you categorize us as, just because you have dark skin or a darker complexion or you have melanin, let me put it like that. If you have melanin, you're just automatically classified as black. Okay, fine. Let's do that. But we all still have different cultures because based on where we came from around the world or even around the country. We have different cultures. So when you point out and say that you're doing this and you're stealing from my black culture, it's like, what black culture are you talking about? Who's specifically? Where from? Where did I get it from? No black person,
Well, I would
no
say,
serious black person can tell you this.
well, I would say a culture bit. You gotta look first of all. There, if okay, I'm gonna take it in a different way. I don't.
Please
I
do.
don't say
I
if
know
we
you
look
will.
at black for this conversation. I'm gonna look at black as a color because I'm not gonna look at it as a race. I'm not gonna look at it anything else. I'm gonna look at the African Americans as a race, and I'm gonna look at African people, culturally. That's a culture. You came from Africa. That's culturally speak. That's a culture, right? I think so much to say that, we have adapted being black as as an extension, I guess, of being from Africa, but we're black, and now we're this culture of people. But I think we're more so a group of people here, not actually a culture. Because if you're going to identify a culture, you're going to identify it from a geographical place such as like Africa. Um, it's just very, very interesting that people in the black, now I will preface it as culture. I know there are two differences, but for the sake of of what we're talking about,
As you're talking
um,
about it, I am looking for a video real quick to hit on your point. So continue.
so me personally, I have a whole different outlook on that. I have a different outlook from the African American culture and the Black culture because they're two different. They're totally different, and the African Americans not believe in some of the things that Black Americans believe. You got two different groups of people with different philosophies. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
it,
I agree.
and
I agree there, but I will also say that there's this problem that we have in the African American black community is that by a very large extension, just through our DNA alone, we
hmm
tend to still carry on the tribalistic mentality of our
hmm
ancestors' tribal differences and cultural differences from Africa itself. So you know we talk about team light skin versus team dark skin, and then even within the dark skin side of the house, You look at somebody and say their nose is wider or their eyes is bigger. Their head
Look at
is
the
more square.
climate. The climate will dictate what's going on. A hotter climate will dictate the
Right?
spread
Yeah,
of your,
that's true.
you know?
I don't disagree there. That's true. That is true. But what I'm getting at is that there's these I guess you could say physical characteristic differences that determine what category of black you are, and
Hmm.
even our socioeconomic status will kick in to determine whether or not how black you are. We get into the conversation of pulling somebody's black card because they vote a certain way, or we're pulling somebody's black card because they're with a white woman or with a white man. So we get into, like I said, these tribalistic mentalities that segregates us even within the African American culture, let alone just let's just say the difference between African American and indigenous Africans that either may have migrated over here or still in Africa. There are still cultural differences. So when we say the black culture, it's like, what are we talking about? The black culture, like,
Right. And we're on the same page with that because I don't
yeah,
believe that there's no difference when you talk about the African American culture and but there is in the black culture and black American culture, totally two different things. And I
right,
think in the African culture, they're very proud. They're very proud. They're when you belong to a tribe, that's like there's there's like a sacredness to that.
mm-hmm,
Um, and you're very proud because of the differences, but you understand that you're part of a whole picture. That's the difference.
right,
You
yeah,
understand you're part of a whole humanity instead of a segregated humanity. So, um, and it's okay to be that way as long as you understand that your uniqueness is in and of itself special as
mm-hmm,
you connect yourself to all of humanity. And that's not what most people do. Most cultures do not. And that's
right,
part of the
yeah,
problem, I think. Part of the
yeah. No,
problem.
I
But
agree.
go ahead. Did you
No,
find them?
yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I think it is trying to
um
do something.
And the Black American culture per se has been very, very valuable and will continue to be very valuable um, to especially to this country.
Mm-hmm.
We really
I don't disagree there, and that is true. And I think it's time. I think we have arrived to that intersection of our society where it's time for us to stop talking about somebody appropriating another person's culture or another group's culture and this and that
right.
and the third. We're so integrated, we're so blended, and you that's trying to point out like for example, there's this viral TikTok going around right now of this uh, Caucasian female who's a TikTok model or something like that or another. I don't know what her background is, but she got braids in her hair, and then all these black women are like attacking her for having braids. It's like, hello, black women. White women been getting braids in their hair since the dawn of time. If you actually understood history,
Well, no, I can tell you as an well, we
it
can't talk
goes
about as an
back.
Ethiopian woman, that was that. Dreads were not, no.
I
I
ain't said
have to,
dreads. I just
that
said
I have
braids.
to say.
I ain't said
They
dreads. I
haven't.
said braids.
Braids. No, no, no. We do braids. Braids are typically when you understand the culture, like let's say African culture. The reason why we braid our hair is not because we're lazy. It's not because that at all. It's because the climate is so hot and you braid your hair so that you don't have to exert extra energy because the climate is so hot. It's not because you're lazy, you're doing it to be proactive so that you can use your energy in other places, like take care of your family, for instance. So those braids are it's a different thing, but the braids came from us and they probably adapted it because the at some point they did, but from
Right.
the beginning of time, that was definitely African. I can't even give them that.
Well, like I said, we can't be for certain that it was definitely
Oh,
African
I
because
can
we
be
have.
because
Well,
I can because there's a book that I inspired, and we wrote a book on this, so I
I
can
got
be
that. I
exact
got
to
that.
tell you what
I got
I
that.
know to be
But
true.
I got that. But what I'm saying is, if we look at the historical time of dawn of man, and
Where are you
just kind
talking
of.
about the dawn of man? Are you talking about Lucy? Are you talking about 3.2 million years ago? Are we talking about 50,000 years ago? Who are we talking about in the existence of
Exactly.
civilization?
Exactly.
Let's talk about that, because if you
Yes,
talk about that,
exactly.
then you'll know that I'm talking about the braids of an Ethiopian woman, not because of where was the white? She didn't even exist.
Well, okay, fine. She didn't exist, but
She didn't yet.
but but when we look at, let's say, pre flood, pre biblical flood era, the women that ran around then, you know they were Middle Eastern, of that origin, per se. So I'm
Okay,
sure
I'll give you.
somebody.
You're getting close. I'll give that
I'm
to
sure
you.
somebody. I'm sure somebody was braiding hair back then as well. I don't know,
No,
but I'm just saying.
I'm telling you, Africans got the hair down, the braids down. You cannot even, there's no debate on that. That's them, 100%, in all
May,
cultures, in
may,
all tribes,
maybe,
everything.
maybe,
And then
but
they shave their head because it's hot too. If you've noticed that in different places in Africa, you see the women with the shaved hair. That's because it's hot. It's
yeah.
hot. Their hair grows. They shave it because it's very hot. The climate is. So you do things to protect your hair. You do things to, as it pertains to your climate.
hmm I don't disagree. I don't. I don't disagree that women.
I'm passionate about that topic because
I don't
we
disagree
just don't
that
know enough of where we come from to
I
even begin to have these conversations. And I think when we learn where we came from, we can understand our value a lot
I
more.
I I'm looking at it from a standpoint of where how humanity has developed over time,
Yeah, okay, I'll
and
give that
things
to you. But
and where
let's start from the
and that
beginning, which is
it's going back to black. Hold on, I got the video up now. I finally got it working.
I knew you would find it.
I know I had it. It was just a matter of trying to get it to
No,
download.
I know. I knew you would find it. I knew it was coming. I know how you multitask over there.
Yep. So, all right, because we only got a few minutes left on the show, so I'm gonna go ahead and just switch over to it, and that way everybody sees what we're talking about here. Here we go.
Was invented by Europeans. It was invented in the early 20th century. You must understand where everyone's coming from. So some people argue that they're black because our skin is dark, but then that's also problematic because Australian Aborigines, are they black? Southern Indians, are they black?
Nice.
Yeah. So what is black? That's phenotype. We've got different culture. We speak an Afro-Asiatic language. So there's so many differences. We are closer.
And we
If
have
we
our own
are
language.
closer, if you look at us genetically, we are closer to the North Africans than the West Africans, and that's a fact. That's a
Okay, fine.
fact. North Africa. Do we all of us are all of us African? Yes, 100%.
Yes.
But are we black? No, we're not black. And I explain to you why. We've got different phenotype. We've got different culture. We've got
What'd you say,
different.
Tiffany?
We speak
I saw you-
Afro-Asiatic
I saw you
language.
getting hyped
But are
there.
we black? No, we're not black.
There's more.
Woo, man. Y'all seen the clip. Y'all seen it. Now that is a African, a Somalian, and he's explaining that he is not the same as West Africans. He's from the continent of Africa, talking about other Africans that are on the continent. We're not even talking about black Americans. We ain't even talking about niggas over here in America. I'm talking about
Right.
them saying that they're not the same as other Africans on the same continent. They got different culture, they got different language, they got different phenotypes. It's funny because this same idea is something that black Americans can't get. They can't get that when I say we're not the same people, we were sold by people who were not our people. We were sold by people who didn't see us as their people, or they wouldn't have sold us in the first place. When I say stuff like that, black people get angry. Black people get upset. You can't understand, can't wrap your head around it that we could be different because we have the brainwashing of the European colonialism, like that system, that education that tells us that we are Africans because we came from Africa. For that basic general history is what is the philosophy we use to say or to believe that we're all brothers. When the evidence, when history has shown that we was never brothers. You don't put your family, your brothers, the people you live around, the people you identify as being the same stock or ethnic race as you on slave ships. You don't do that. The dilemma with us is the way we look at things. Race, colorism. That's the dilemma with us snapping out of that thing that we are all African. And I feel like it's misinformation and ignorance on both sides, in the American side and the West African side. In some of those African countries, like Ghana, has apologized for the crimes of their ancestors against the people of the diaspora, quote unquote. The thing is that we're just not the same people as Native Africans. And that's something that people got to deal with. Got to deal with Africans saying they're not the same as other different Africans that speak different languages, that have different phenotypes. So a Somalian is saying, well, I'm not like a West African. I'm not like a Nigerian. We got a different
Yes,
phenotype. We
very
don't even look
different.
like each other. We don't speak the same languages. He even went to go into the DNA, right? But I'm not going to get into all of that. But just in general, we overlook all of those things and say we're all related. Now, Black Americans, we have all type of phenotypes. We could have thick nose, thick lips, small nose, pointy nose, small lips, wavy hair, kinky hair. We could have it all. You know what I mean? Y'all gonna have to deal with the fact that just because you're black does not mean that you are the same people. I hope you just learned something from what that Somalian just said.
Okay,
My
I
point.
got something to say about that, okay? Number one, the reason why the Somalian did not agree that he was black because the word black means to shine, and it has everything to do with that. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. So
Well,
he understands the definition. So he's not going to relate to being that because he doesn't believe he's that. Now he believes
well,
he's African.
for the audience, Tiffany, for the audience here that's listening today, let's not relegate that black means to shine because that is part of
If you're
somebody's
going, no, no, no. I'm
somebody's
saying
language.
a
So
mark in the language, a mark. If you're looking at from a linguistic point of view, which I am, let me preface
right,
by
okay,
saying
yeah, thank you. There you go, there you go.
that
I was gonna
is
say
a mark. Black means to shine. So if Somalians, Ethiopians, you're going based on your dialect of language, right? And so in his circumstance, he doesn't believe that he is because in his language, when you trace it through language, that doesn't mean that there is a connection to black people because that's not what the definition is. Now, when he says that you're African, when he says that he's African, he understands where he comes from. West Africa and East Africa, totally different. The Somalians are different than the Ethiopians, are different than the Nigerians, are different than any of the people on the continent. And I understand that. But
yep,
you have to and also understand how Africans view Black Americans. And
totally
they
different.
don't view them the same way
Correct.
because there is an education, a little bit more education that they have that they understand overall than what we have been told.
Right.
There's a difference. And
Absolutely.
then when you want to go
Yep.
back to slavery, it wasn't because we were stupid. It was because we had the knowledge to produce the food that they needed to produce. So whoever was the person who came
And,
over here and said that, like, oh, okay, you wouldn't, why did you wouldn't put somebody in that category? First of all, didn't put somebody, they didn't come for that reason to make you a slave because you were not valuable. They came to make you a slave because you had
I'm
knowledge.
not. Yeah, you
Period.
have
That's
skills.
a
Yeah.
whole different thing. So
Right.
stop telling the
And that
story that
that
we were just
right.
ignorant and we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah. There's that component, and there's also the
You
component
know how
of.
passionate I get about this
I
subject.
know, and we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna pick it up next week. We're gonna pick it up next week because we out of time. But I would say yes, you're right. There is that component, and there's also the component of where there was a tribalistic wars that as a byproduct of war, just like it is today. You end up being a prisoner of war. Instead of having a prisoner, they say, "Man, we finna make money off you," and just sell them. So that was that. So there's a whole series of layers behind that. And like I said, this is something that we can definitely pick up on next week when you come
Well,
back.
I see, yeah, we do. Because I'm gonna bring the book and I'm gonna show you the book, and then
Yeah,
and
we gonna
this
get
is a
into
book
it.
that
We gonna
people
get.
can download if
This
they
is something
want
I
to
want to
know
get
the
into.
history.
This is something I want to get into because this also bleeds into the previous series of the Iron Triangle.
Right.
And so all this comes together. So Black America, stay tuned. Come back next week. We will catch you all then. Be safe. God bless you all. And yeah, we gotta jump off of here. So catch you soon. Be safe. You are watching the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.tecntv.com.